this is Laura, and this is going to be a very short review of the portrayal of complex trauma in the series Anne with an E, or rather the first 2 episodes, because I haven't watched further than that yet. But spoiler, I really liked what I've seen so far. That's why I decided to make this video. And I know I never said I was going to make any review of any kind, but surprise, here we are. So, I've always loved, not always, but I really loved the Anne of Green Gables books, and I've been a huge fan of the 80s movies, and that's why I didn't get into Anne with an E before, because I really was clinging to those old movies. But yeah, I'm not going to go into why I now decided to watch it, because that will take forever. But thankfully I got into it and I really love it. And yay, I'm only 8 years late, so this is a very typical one. Anyway, so yeah, about the portrayal, I was really struck, and I didn't expect it to have such a great portrayal of Anne's childhood trauma. So I was really positively surprised about that. So in the first 2 episodes, what do we get to see about that? We get to see her having a lot of flashbacks from her time in the orphanage and living with other families, being their nanny and working for them. And I think there are about, I don't know, I didn't count them, but I think at least 5 or so flashbacks, so that's a lot. And what I think what I liked best was when she's first arriving at Green Gables, and, Marilla is so shocked that she isn't a boy, and everything becomes clear that, they don't want her, they didn't want a girl. And you can really see how traumatizing this is for Anne, and it's also really well acted and scripted, I suppose, how she is dissociating. So, usually when we have a film, it's like in fiction, we sort of see things from the omnipresent, omniscient narrator. So we are like an observer, like an outside observer, and see what's going on for all of the characters. But sometimes this sort of perspective shifts into the point of view of one specific character, and we see or experience things from their perspective. And that's what happened in this scene with Anne. So I really liked how they did that, how they sort of took us, the viewers, into inside Anne's mind. And the way they did that is they sort of muted the sound, that she didn't hear what Marilla and Matthew were talking, and sort of the camera was just right above her ear, or so, as though we were seeing things from her perspective. So that I really love that, because it really made me feel someone who has complex trauma and dissociative identity, which are not disorders or mental illnesses, by the way, but just natural adaptations, neurodivergence due to trauma. And you can watch my earlier videos if you want to learn more about that. But anyway, so me having had so much lived experience of trauma, I really felt like, yeah, this is what it feels like. This is so well done. Like, she's having such a strong reaction, which is absolutely appropriate. Given that, she's been through all of this childhood abuse and has so much trauma, and she's never been wanted anywhere. And now these people who seemingly wanted her, and Matthew never said a thing. He took her with him in the car and brought her to Green Gables, only for Marilla to come out and say, hey, no, we don't want you. So, of course, that it's horribly re-traumatizing for Anne. And yeah, I thought it was really well done and very thoughtful to, show Anne having such a strong reaction and dissociating. Like she's not really able to react or answer any of Marilla's questions in the moment, and she's just zoning out, and that's exactly how it is. And also with the flashbacks, I thought it was great, not just showing the abuse within these families, but also within the orphanage. And also later on, which was something that wasn't, most of this wasn't in the book. It was only like hinted at, the abuse that she had gone through. Later on, when Matthew was at the orphanage, and he was also really shocked at just being at that place, seeing what was going on. It was early in the morning when all the children were sort of brought to class or something, and was all very loud, and was like, you could feel, at least I could feel, like, oh God, what a horrible, oppressive place, it's like a prison for children. So that was all so well done. Like, it really shows you how horrible all of these, how horrible this kind of institution was, and how horrible things have been for Anne. And I think definitely any people who watch this who are survivors of childhood abuse, I think it's very easy to relate to that, and they will definitely be reminded of what they've gone through. And I think that's so important to show that. And what else was I going to say? I think that's it. I mean, I know I've read a little bit more about how good this series is also in terms of inclusion and representation of oppressed groups, social groups. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that, and hopefully making a video about that too. But the other thing I was thinking, like, this is sort of something that I would love to see more. I don't know if it's going to happen in this series, but I always thought, like, hey, this would be great. Like, the way that Marilla and Matthew, they have their own trauma. They are very, like, it's very obvious that they have their own childhood trauma, and, like, pretty much everyone at that time would have had that, just due to how children were being raised. And there's all of this generational trauma that's being passed on, and we still have it today, generational trauma. But it's me knowing so much about trauma, it's so easy to see that Marilla is very much stuck in the fight state, the fight trauma response, and Matthew's in a lot of freeze and fawning response. And I wouldn't say that Marilla is on the narcissistic spectrum, maybe on the lower end, because she's in fight response, but I wouldn't call her like an abusive I wouldn't call her a narcissist, but I don't know, I guess I would have to analyze more. But I think, Rachel Lyne, she's a narcissist. Like, it's such an awful character. I love when I got angry at her. It's just so good. But yeah. Like, you can also see that Marilla and Matthew, they do care for Anne. So, it's not like they're abusers, but they re-traumatize her because they pass on their own childhood trauma, and they are stuck in their roles. So they're both very much in the avoidant attachment style. So that's why they can't, give Anne everything she needs, and like what she needs the most obviously is to be loved, and that for that to be expressed. And I thought it was also very well shown at the end of the second episode how re-traumatizing it is for Anne to be sent away again after Marilla thought that she had lost her brooch. I also think this wasn't in the book. I try to be not too much to be too much of a book purist. It's hard. Trying. I mean, I read before that it was only loosely based on books, so I was prepared. And most of what they changed from the book, I really liked that, because I thought, yeah, that's very appropriate for modern audience, and it's really well done. So, but yeah, that whole thing that they send her away, I think in the book it's just that she's not allowed to go to the picnic, I think. But anyway, I don't know. But since they went down that road of deciding they would send Anne away, and then that's like this really dramatic search for her, how re-traumatizing, of course, this is for Anne. And, you know, that's exactly what should not happen to children with complex trauma, and also adults who have complex trauma, you know, who have childhood abuse. What we really need is a consistent, safe relationship. And consistency, of course, means that you're not switching back and forth between, oh, I want you, oh no, wait, I don't want you. You know, that's the worst thing you can do to a person with complex trauma. So I also thought that it was really well done and shown how awful this is for Anne, and that when Matthew found her, at first she didn't want to go back with him, and she was really angry. And so, and then afterwards, when Marilla didn't even act like she was happy that she was back, which I thought was like, wow, this is bad. Like, she should apologize. The moment Anne was back, she should have apologized, of course. So of course Anne thinks that she doesn't want her, because, you know, and it's all because, you know, Marilla is very avoidant, Matthew is very avoidant, and that's not good for a child. You know, a child needs to know that they are loved and wanted, and they're all, gosh, it's so awful to watch how none of them are like able to really express their feelings and just say what they feel. And, you know, what really struck me, and this was also like very triggering for me, because I'm very socially isolated. I suffer a lot from skin hunger. So I just noticed, I think in all the series they didn't hug each other at any point. I think the only thing was in the beginning, in the first episode, when they wanted to send Anne back initially, and she went with Marilla to see Mrs. Spencer. I think Anne sort of embraced Matthew around his neck when he said something nice to her. I think that was like the only physical affection that we see in those first two episodes. And it made me feel like, oh God, like, there's so much emotional upheaval, so much trauma, so much rupture, so much conflict going on between these people in their relationship, and they never really make up. They never show their affection in any way, and it's so unhealthy. And yeah, I think, you know, it's very typical of the time and the place of the culture. And I feel like it's definitely still a thing, especially with white people. Not everywhere, but, you know, I think it's a lot in the United States and Canada, and some European countries, definitely in Germany from my experience. So that's very much, that's, what would you call it? It's like both emotional and physical neglect. Like human beings, especially children, need healthy physical affection. So to literally, and babies die if they don't get any healthy physical affection. So that really, that was very accurately portrayed, and I felt that very much. And I'm really curious to see if that, gets better over time. I know at the end of episode 2, Anne put her head on Marilla's shoulder, but she didn't reciprocate. So yeah, I hope that gets better. It would be nicer to watch it too. So that was just something that I noticed also with my trauma knowledge, and I think this is already over 50 minutes, and I wanted to keep it short. But yeah, what I wanted to say originally with this whole long talk is that it would be so cool to see like Marilla or Matthew having flashbacks of their childhood trauma, because I think that would be super perfect to understand why they act the way they act and why they have all of these attachment issues, relationship issues, and why everything's so hard for them. And I think eventually through their relationship with Anne, it helps them to heal a bit. It helps them. So there's like some mutual healing going on through the relationship. It's really beautiful to see. So I'm really excited to see how that's going to be portrayed. I know it's 3 seasons, so I hope you enjoyed this, could take something from it. Thank you for watching. Bye.